Hi, I'm Lundy Bancroft. Welcome to the Peak Living Network. I'm going to explain what it is that makes the Peak Living Network have the particular flavor that it has so that you can figure out whether this is a network that would be a good fit for you. So, first of all, we're free. The vast majority of stuff that goes on in the Peak Living Network doesn't cost any money. The things that do cost money are just to cover our own expenses. No one in PLN is making any money off of anything, including me. We're an all-volunteer outfit. So second, we are equals in this network. We don't have therapists. We do have therapists, but not acting as therapists in the network. There's no one who's here as a therapist. We don't talk about people who are more healed or people who are less healed or people who have dealt with their trauma and people who have not dealt with their trauma. The idea is just that we're all pursuing emotional healing. We're all trying to find our way out of the things that have happened to us and that we're all in it together. There are certain things we're going to insist on. We're going to insist that people listen well. We're going to insist that people treat each other well. But that's not going to involve any judgment about sort of who's more this or who's more that. And that means that it's very important to us that people who are participating in the Peak Living Network not be coming here with prejudices. We're going to treat people equal, male or female. We're going to treat people equal by race. We're going to treat people equal by what their class background is, whether they grew up rich or poor, whether they went to a lot of school or didn't go to any school at all. This is an atmosphere of mutual respect and equality. Next, this is a no advice zone. No advice, not even suggestions, are acceptable in the Peak Living Network unless someone has specifically asked of their own accord, without being prompted by anyone else, could you give me advice or what do you think I should do? And even then, you're not under any obligation to give it. You can always say, oh, I'm not comfortable giving advice. But advice is off limits unless it's explicitly asked for. And that means that we don't even say to someone else, would you like some advice? Can I give you a suggestion? That question is off limits in the Peak Living Network. And we avoid problem solving, which means, have you tried this? Have you tried this other thing? Have you tried this other thing? That's really just making suggestions in a slightly different package. And suggestions put people under pressure. They put them on the defensive. Then they have to explain to you why they want to try this and why they don't want to try that. So this is a no advice zone. And then related to that is that we also have no dogma. That means that we're not going to tell you, oh, well, you should do this, or you should look at it this way, or you need to take a different attitude, or you need to realize that it's all for the best, or you need to realize that it's all part of the big plan. That you may believe those things. What I'm saying is we don't say them to each other. You're welcome to have whatever beliefs you want. But we're not in the business of telling other people how they should run their lives or what philosophies they should have or how they should look at things to make things better. We also don't believe that works very well. What I call healing by bumper sticker. It's not very effective anyhow. We have a healing approach that we teach called co-counseling, which I'll say a little more about, but you're under no pressure to be involved in co-counseling. It's completely voluntary. And you can be pursuing emotional healing in any way you want, using whatever belief system or using particular books or videos or other organizations that you're part of that you feel promote your healing. We're behind you on all of that. So no advice, no dogma, no telling people to look at it differently and cheer up in the Peak Living Network. Next, time is shared equally at any Peak Living Network support group and in co-counseling sessions. So that means that when we're sharing support in the Peak Living Network in any formal way, groups, co-counseling sessions, all kinds of gatherings, we have a timer going during each person's turn. We divide the time up equally. If we have an hour and we have 5 people, we do the math. Okay, that's going to be about 10 minutes a person, and there's a timer going. So your turn's over, it's time to stop. The advantage of doing this is that, first of all, it means that during your turn, you have other people's complete and undivided attention. You don't have to worry that someone's going to interrupt you and start talking about themselves. And it also means that when you're participating in a group, for example, you don't have to worry that someone's going to be doing all the talking. And this is a complaint that I've heard a lot over the years about support groups. Like, oh yeah, I used to go to a support group, but it was always the same one or two or three people that did all the talking, and the rest of us didn't really get to talk that much. We don't have that in the Peak Living Network. We got a timer going, and time is shared equally. Next, we're going after emotions in the Peak Living Network, not after analysis. And that means that emotions are encouraged. We don't tell people to feel better. We don't, as I was saying, tell people a different way to look at it that will cheer them up. We let people feel what they're feeling. We're here to witness and support, help people feel their feelings, and help people get their feelings out, help them move their feelings through themselves. And that means that displays of emotion are completely accepted. We don't tell people not that they're laughing too much. We don't tell people, oh no, don't cry. We don't tell people, oh, you shouldn't be so angry. This is a place where you get to not only feel what you're feeling, but you get to get it out. We refer to it as discharge. You get to discharge it. And in fact, our belief is that that's the most powerful form of emotional healing. That's actually the most emotional healing that the human being can have. The most emotional healing experience is when you actually discharge your emotions through laughter and crying and angry storming. That's actually what gets us well, more than anything else we can try. So at the same time, we're working to become really skillful with each other. So this isn't just like a strictly listening environment. We're trying to learn how to be really thoughtful about each other without giving advice, but how to have our support for each other become more and more thoughtful, more and more skillful, more and more insightful, more and more saying to people what they would really want to hear, saying things to people that make a difference. Now, that can sound confusing at first. Well, how am I going to make a difference to people when you're saying we can't give advice? Well, that's so much of what we're all about, is how do we get really good at reaching in to help someone feel really accompanied and reach in to help them heal emotionally instead of trying to make them feel better in the short term or trying to fix what's going on for them. We deeply believe that people can heal, that in fact they can not just heal a little bit, but that they can transform their lives. And I've experienced it. I've watched plenty of other people experience it over the course of my lifetime. Things can be completely different. That's why we call it the Peak Living Network, is that we can have a peak quality of life. It's not just about, ooh, I want to make things this much better. And this is where we collide, and there are various other places where we collide, with some traditional healing beliefs, and particularly things that come out of like psychotherapy, for example, is that you'll hear so much in therapy, oh, things are only going to get this a little bit better, or yeah, this pain you will always have with you, and you can't really expect things to change that much. I've heard therapists saying to people, well, the grief, you're always going to have the grief that you're having, but you have to befriend that grief, and it'll become more manageable over the years. We don't actually believe that. We believe grief can heal till after you've done some really deep grieving work. You don't feel so sad anymore. It becomes less and less a focus of your life. You start to have long periods of time when you're not even thinking about the sadness very much, when things are actually changing and you're getting well. Next, we're a community. So not a living community, but we're a support community where we get to know each other. We are giving each other support in various ways, which I'll be explaining in a few minutes, like what our activities actually involve. And so we believe that healing is a collective process. This is the limitation to self-help, is that it is self-help. You're going off to try to take care of things on your own, to do the suggestions at the back of the book or at the end of the video. And this can work a little bit, but it generally is not going to be able to work a whole lot. And one of the fundamental principles of emotional healing is that you can't heal well from something that's still true in your life today. Like, first we have to fix our immediate conditions till we're in a better place, and then we can start to work on healing. Well, so many of our wounds have to do with ways that we were deeply isolated and left alone to deal with things that we shouldn't have had to deal with alone. So how are we going to heal from that stuff if we're alone today? So the way to break out of the limitations of self-help is to start working together, to work towards each other's healing, not just our own, and make healing a collective process. So the Peak Living Network is a community. And then there's another kind of taboo from the healing world that we try very hard to break. So we try to break the taboo of like, oh, you got to do it on your own. You can't expect other people to help you. And the other one we're trying to break is the notion that you can completely separate in questions of injustice from questions of emotional healing. We believe those are deeply interwoven because a huge proportion, probably most, of our deepest emotional wounds are related to severe experiences of injustice that we've had, experiences of oppression. So in the Peak Living Network, we talk about oppression. We talk about sexism. We talk about racism. We talk about classism. That's not somehow separate from our emotional healing work. Some people say, well, wait a minute, that's not about personal healing. Those are political questions. It's inseparable because our wounding is so interwoven with those societal systems that keep people down, and where we have very intense personal wounds that in another sense aren't so personal because they were happening all over the place to people who looked like us or who had our position in society. So another principle of emotional healing is you can't heal from what you can't talk about. So this is a place where people can talk about oppression and can talk about injustice, and it's actually a big theme in the Peak Living Network. So what does the Peak Living Network consist of? We have a lot of different activities. We have open meetings every month or two. Anybody can come. You don't have to have been to anything prior in the Peak Living Network. There's a talk on some subject related to emotional healing, and then there's just open group discussion. So it's a chance to just get to know other people from the network, learn a little bit about the PLN outlook on things. We have online support. We have a forum, and we can tell you about how you get connected with that, where people put up posts just talking about different things that they're going through and get support, supportive responses from other people in the network, discussions on various topics, so you can just follow your particular topic, and a lot of support just takes place in our online forum. We have support groups, some that are just in general for emotional support, and some which have specific themes. We have goal groups, for example, that are specifically for people who want to work on their life direction and on particular things they're trying to accomplish. We at times have women's groups. We have groups that are specifically devoted to reading The Joyous Recovery and discussing it, just book discussion groups. And the book that I wrote called The Joyous Recovery, which is really the basis for the Peak Living Network. You don't have to read it to be in the Peak Living Network, but I'm just saying the concepts in The Joyous Recovery are what underlies the Peak Living Network. Most people who come to the Peak Living Network come to it because they read The Joyous Recovery or heard about it or read some part of it. So we have book discussion groups. And then we have groups that are a kind of support group that is working the exercises that go with the Joyous Recovery. So the Joyous Recovery has a whole set of exercises that go with it that you can get at our website, peaklivingnetwork.org. Again, all that stuff is free. And so we have groups that are supporting each other to work through the exercises that accompany the Joyous Recovery. All that stuff is free. It varies when it's being offered. There are not always these groups going on at all times, but that's a sampling of the kinds of things we have scattered throughout the year. We practice a healing system called co-counseling, and we also teach it. Co-counseling is a system where you take the course and learn the basics of how to do it. There are also some other ways to learn if you can't take the course. And then people who've been trained in co-counseling meet up together for two-person sessions where one person is the counselor for the first hour, and then you switch roles, and the other person is counselor for the second hour. That's why it's called co-counseling. And it's a powerful system for many, many reasons. You can watch the video on this channel called What is Co-Counseling that explains why it has particular healing power, but some of it is precisely because you're playing both roles. You're playing the role of counselor and the role of client, and you are working as equals. So we have co-counseling trainings. That's one of the few things that you have to pay for on the Peak Living Network if you want to take a co-counseling class. Not a lot of money, and frankly, the main reason we charge is because we want people to take that class really seriously when they join. And the teacher's not paid. That money just goes to Peak Living Network expenses, our scholarship fund for other kinds of Peak Living Network events, and so forth. So a really significant number of people in the Peak Living Network end up choosing to practice co-counseling, and so quite a few people go through our co-counseling trainings. But there are other ways to learn co-counseling. There's a complete manual for co-counseling that, again, is free. It's at peaklivingnetwork.org, and we have a whole set of training videos on this channel for learning how to co-counsel. And so there are various ways to learn. If you have somebody that is willing to learn with you, because you have to have a partner to do it, it's a two-person system, you can dive into practicing and learning co-counseling anytime you want to do that. We have periodic orientation sessions to learn more about how to really get involved with the network. We also have an orientation video that you can watch. It's just called Peak Living Network Orientation. Again, it's on this channel. It'll tell you the nuts and bolts of how to get involved with the Peak Living Network and some other just things that are useful to know to be part of the network, so you don't get frustrated, basically, and so you don't annoy other people. But it's also beneficial to come to a live orientation session because you get to ask questions and you get to meet other people who are new to the network. We have a whole bunch of written materials and videos at peaklivingnetwork.org. So all kinds of articles. I talked to you about the manual, the exercises that go with the Joyous Recovery, links to all the videos from our YouTube channel, all that stuff. And then periodically we have retreats, and we're hoping that we'll have more and more of those now that the epidemic is easing, and those are really a special time. Those cost money because we have to pay to use a retreat center and the meals and the lodging and everything. But where people come together for 2 or 3 days to practice Peak Living Network principles and to get support all weekend, and also just to have a fun time being together. So that's what the Peak Living Network is all about, and that's what distinguishes us. That's what creates the flavor of our organization. If you would like to know more, I encourage you to take the next step, which is to either come to a live orientation or watch the PLN orientation video on this channel, or both. The way to find out when an orientation is coming up is to sign up for our newsletter, again, at peaklivingnetwork.org. Once or twice a month, you'll get a calendar of the upcoming events in Peak Living Network, which will also include whether there's an orientation coming up and when that's happening.